Well, welcome to the Real Journeys of Success podcast. Yes, this is your host, Rob Elliott. And again, we have an amazing speaker. He is a world famous radio announcer. He's owned 2 event companies. These days, he's known as one of the most prolific and the best guys who used to work on stage and now doing it virtually as a motivational speaker, Mr. Steve Gamlin, all the way from New Hampshire in America. How are you, mate?
Doing great, Rob. Thank you so much for having me here and ready to enjoy a really cool, fun conversation.
Mate, before we get into where you are today, where did you grow up? Where did you ride bikes and throw stones at people's front doors?
I haven't, luckily I didn't break any windows or front doors because I haven't moved that far away from where I grew up.
Yep.
I've been within 30 miles of where I am right now for most of my life.
Yeah.
We've got everything here in southern New Hampshire that I could ever want: mountains, lakes, ocean nearby, and a big city to go look at the pretty fancy lights. So yeah, I've just been pretty much in a little tiny state in a big country. And now we live on a quiet road out in the woods in an even smaller town.
Did you have a big family growing up?
No, it was actually just my sister and I and,
Yeah.
and mom and dad, but we had our grandparents lived nearby.
Yep.
So we always had some cousins kicking around but it was just kind of the 4 of us, and we liked it that way. We actually loved hanging out with each other, which made it a lot easier. Yeah.
Mate, that's awesome. So I ask a lot of my guests the same question. It sort of shows who they are very early. At school, did you sit at the front, the back, or the middle?
I tended to sit in the middle because I grew up kind of shy, which blows people's minds that now I'm get on stage and in front of audiences and speak.
Yeah.
But I usually tried to kind of hide out in the gray area of the middle. And if the teacher wanted us to raise our hand and answer something, if I didn't know, I just always hoped that the kid in front of me was taller than I was so I could hide.
And were you a good student, or did you spend some time outside the principal's office?
I was actually a very good student the whole way through because I was just shy and quiet, didn't want any attention, which included bad attention. And in 7th grade, I got embarrassed in the spelling bee, so I made myself even more invisible by not raising my hand from 7th grade pretty much through the end of college. And I just watched my grades trail with smoke coming out of them the whole way, and I barely graduated college. My dad used to love his favorite joke when I did stand-up comedy was that his son graduated summa cum this close. So I was kind of a goody 2 shoes, didn't want to get in trouble, but I was also kind of invisible.
So what did you study college?
I went there for business to learn more about maybe someday having my own business and the inner workings of it. And yeah.
So did the radio career come before comedy, or was it comedy radio?
The radio came first. It was actually a childhood dream. Over here in the States, there was a TV show in the 70s called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Fictional radio station.
Yeah.
I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I saw this guy named Dr. Johnny Fever, who had kind of shaggy hair, scruffy beard. He wore sunglasses indoors, which I thought was just so cool.
Yes.
And I said, someday I want a job like that. And in my early 20s, a friend of mine said, why didn't you ever pursue it? And he kicked my butt hard enough that I actually went and did it for 10 years and worked 15 years worth of hours and just burnt myself right into the ground.
You burnt. So what was it like? Well, what was the feeling like the first time you got behind that microphone and it was you, the microphone, the record player back then, and that was it? It was just you.
Actually, for the first 8 years of my radio career, I was mostly a morning show producer. So I didn't spend a lot of time on the mic. And most of that was because I was just too shy. And, you know, the first time you get on a mic and you hear yourself in your headphones, the first thought is, oh my gosh, is that what I sound like? Oh my God, I sound terrible. And it's just weird. You do that. Hey, it's me. And you start doing that, hearing yourself. So I kind of, even in radio for the first 8 years, kind of stayed in the background a bit, but I did everything you heard that wasn't a live voice was me. And I loved making the talent look really, really good. So I worked very, very hard to do that.
And what type of music did you like back then?
I was classic rock the whole way.
Awesome.
Rock and classic rock. And all my other friends went to country and pop, and I stayed on rock the whole way. And I was the happiest of all of us.
And I guess nothing much has changed today.
Nope, not at all. Still classic rock every morning. I tell Alexa, play the Rolling Stones, and I start my day rocking.
Awesome. So how did you end up in stand-up?
It's funny, I crashed and burned the whole radio thing.
Yeah.
After 10 years, I was just burned out, fried. My first marriage ended shortly after,
Mm.
and financially, I was in horrible shape.
Mm.
And just, I spent an afternoon hitting golf balls in a thunderstorm one day. And then I told a brand new life coach about it.
Mm.
And I tried to just make it sound funny, as pathetic as it was. I tried
Yeah.
to make it sound funny. And he said, "You ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do both, but I have no idea how." And he pointed me to an intro to stand-up comedy class that started 2 weeks later.
Yep.
And I started doing comedy just like that. It just took somebody asking me the right question and pointing me in the right direction to actually know how to pursue it. And I did that for 7 years while I was also building my speaking business at the same time.
So I'll ask you two questions about stand-up. The first time you actually felt you nailed it and the crowd really uh, engaged with you, what did it make you feel like?
It was the most incredible feeling in the world. And not in the way that some people say, like I had power, I had a grip over the audience.
Hmm.
It more felt like, and it feels this way in speaking as well,
Hmm.
something I shared, which I created and told only in the way that I would tell it, just caused people to react
Yeah.
joyfully to
Yeah.
something I said. And we were there. We were sharing a moment. And I treasure that. And I never, ever, ever take that for granted or see it as a sign of my power. It's a journey. And I love that feeling. Still do.
Now I'm going to say the same, but the other way, which we've all experienced, when you've got a dead audience, as we used to call it, it doesn't matter what you say or do, you get nothing.
Yep.
How did it make you feel, and how did you get out of it?
Well, the time I'm thinking of now, well, for comedy, I would just keep saying, okay, one more joke and keep trying. And then eventually I would just run out of material. But in the
Yep.
speaking world, when I've bombed a couple times, um, it wasn't the right audience. I should have said no.
Hmm.
We didn't have the same style. They were not after what I was delivering.
Hmm.
And I learned very quickly after giving back about $400 or $500 one day that I should have said no to that. So I'm much more aware of the type of audience and the message they're looking for in their style now before I'll take an event and at least take the odds of bombing that badly off the table. But when it happens, it hurts. It really does.
So if you look back now at your career or your life up to when you blew it all up, as you said to me off air, which I think we've all done it from time to time. You've done your stand-up, you've done everything, your marriage has collapsed. What was your biggest learning out of that time if you look back now?
I should have been a lot more in tune with what I really wanted in life and who I wanted to be in the process. I used to be a pathological rescuer of damaged people.
Yes.
Whether it be in dating relationships, I would just see these people who were in pain and needed help, and I would gravitate towards being in relationships with people like that.
Mm.
And it's a disservice to them.
Yep.
It's a disservice to yourself because then that becomes your identity that you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough. I wasn't dreaming of what I really wanted in life or who I wanted to be. I kept making myself a martyr in a way.
Yeah.
For work, in personal relationships, and dating, and all of these things. And it just got so frustrating because I'm a very non-confrontational person, still am non-confrontational. So I put myself in these situations. Then I would get mad at the other person because I had put myself in that situation. And the frustrations just built. And the two most important words that came out of that period of my life are honor yourself. And I've lived by those ever since. Not always easy, but when I do that, I'm the best version of me for everybody else. And it's paid off so well for making that decision and living by it.
All the successful people that I've interviewed so far have all had a moment when they're at their worst, they've stuffed everything up, and there's something that all of a sudden just clicks in them and they get up and they go, right, I'm going to put this all right. When was that for you and what was the moment?
It was, and I hinted at it earlier because I was hoping you would ask for the moment. In August 2003, it was about a year and a half after the radio and
Yeah.
divorce, and divorce was in process at the time. And I had $3 left in my pocket on a Friday afternoon, and I went to a local golf driving range, which you just sit there and you just whack the heck out of a bucket of golf balls. And it was just to get out frustration and just, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not confrontational. I don't fight with people. I take it out on a bucket of golf balls.
Yeah.
And I went to the farthest tee box because I am an atrocious golfer. I will damage anything near me. So I went to
I'm
the
allowed to
farthest tee box, which was underneath power lines. And it was August in New England, and a thunderstorm came through. So this thunder, lightning, pouring rain. I'm standing there barefoot in the wet grass, waving a metal club, standing under power lines. And everybody but me ran from the storm. And I just kept hitting. And I just held the club up at one point. I said, just go ahead. I dare you. Hit all my golf balls, and I went to leave, and two gentlemen who were near me left two full buckets of golf balls and ran from the storm. So I hit theirs too.
Yep.
And by the time I finished, I couldn't even lift my arms. And when I got to my car, the rain stopped and the sun came out, and I just started laughing at how ridiculous it all was.
Yeah.
And that week I was speaking with a brand new life coach I just started working with, and I shared it and made it funny. And that led to him asking me the questions about comedy and motivational speaking. And literally from that moment, I've not wavered at all. It just felt so comfortable when somebody asked me, would you do this? And I thought, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I just didn't know how. And he pointed me in the right directions.
So how did you get started then? Because you're broke, you're a bad golfer, you stand in the rain.
Yep.
Mate, if you walked up to me and I'm a business and you said, mate, I'm a motivational speaker, can I speak at your event? I'd laugh at you because that's what they do.
Yeah.
How did you get started? How did you get your first break and keep on from that? And how did you, and I'm not going to tell people what you're known for, I'll let you bring that in, but you do have one of the most unique names that you told me that you before that people know you by. So let's hear your story of how you got there.
Well, I also started speaking when I joined Toastmasters, which I went to a comedy class to teach me tools of comedy. I went to Toastmasters to teach me the tools of actually creating the stories and telling them in such a way that they can teach a lesson and not to just be funny or pathetic. So I started to craft my stories and how to use my voice and my face and my gestures and pauses and my physicality. And I got known and I started to win competitions, and people would see me there and say, hey, Steve, I loved your story and your lesson. Hey, would you come speak at my company?
Yeah.
Literally, it started from people seeing me live, not trying to market myself.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we'd love to have you come in and do this. And then by word of mouth, it just started to grow.
Yeah.
And then I joined the National Speakers Association and kind of got my name working up the ladder a bit there as well. But you're right, to just come in and tell a pathetic story. In that time in my life too, I took a lot of notes. I wrote in my journals a lot. So every lesson I learned became a story, and I would craft it. And then I just put enough stories together and had a speech.
And how hard was it at the start?
I was terrible.
Yeah.
And I have video to prove it. People go, you couldn't have been that bad. I'm like, let me show you. But see, if you're not afraid to go out there and just stink it first, you're not going to get any better. And I encourage everybody when they're starting out, record yourself, and they go, okay, I did. Then I'll ask, did you watch it? Oh no, I hate watching myself. Well, I watched everything, and I brutally critiqued myself, and I got better. So, but that first year was terrible.
There's a great story about Tom Brady, the NFL, of course, probably the most world famous quarterback. Us know very little about American football, but we all know him. About how he was the third and fourth pick, used to go out and practice after the game, before the game, pick the balls up. And he stunk. He told everyone he stunk, but he kept practicing until his opportunity came. Yep. And the sliding door moment, and he got his break. Yeah. So what would you say now to people who are in a similar situation? It doesn't have to be public speaking, but they're blowing it all up. Doesn't matter the age. They're sitting like you, like Tony Robbins, like Gary Vee, the whole lot who have been there and at the bottom with nothing. in today's world, we've changed. We've had COVID. We're a digital age. Stuff you did silly 10 years ago can now be brought up against you, or they can research just about everything you've ever said or done.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone get started today and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, as we say in Australia, and just get on with it?
Biggest thing I recommend to people is put pen to paper. Go sit somewhere quiet, turn off the phone or leave it at home or leave it in the car. Just go sit somewhere peaceful and just write down everything about where your life is right now in every area of your life, your physical health, your relationships, emotions, career, everything. Just write where it is and think about what it took to put your life in this challenging position right now. And then everything you learn or anything that life has ever taught you. I mean, very few people crash their lives and say, this is the first time anything's ever gone wrong in my life. Think back to every lesson that life has ever taught you and how you came out of it on the other side, people you met, something you learned, something that inspired you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I do as a speaker is I share my story. I can't change your life.
No.
But if you can relate to where I've been, so I'm very aware every single day. I write down things I'm grateful for and I write down things I learn. So if you're feeling down right now, if you're in the ashes of that fire,
yeah,
think about what life's taught you in every little step to get out of there. Jot it down and share it because there's going to be somebody in the shadows of your life who's praying for a hero today and you get to be one, even if you don't feel like one.
Yeah.
You get to be one to somebody else by being honest and being open and caring about them.
And what do you say to these, especially these, I call them 16 to 26-year-olds that live their life looking at Instagram, TikTok, and not much Facebook for that, but they're trying to emulate and be someone else.
Yeah, it's really tough right now because they call themselves the influencers.
Yeah.
Who are out there. Oh, that term just grates on me a little bit.
Yes, it does to me too.
And they're trying to be this fictional caricature of somebody out there who's not a real person. And the sad part is a lot of these influencers and these celebrities who are famous for being shocking and outrageous and contradictory to everything else. Some of them are the most miserable, unhappy people on earth, but they have this image. So I recommend to people, figure out what's great about you. Don't try to be somebody else. It's already being done. And it's been done 1,000 times over. It just has a new Instagram handle or TikTok handle. So stop trying to be these other people. Be the best that you've got to offer with the gifts you already have. Even if they can inspire you, but please don't try to be them. Stay true to who you are as a person because somebody loves you for the way you are, not for this fake persona.
Oh, mate, so true, so true. So I'm going to let people know what your tagline is, if you recall. We're having a bit of a laugh about it before. And how did you come up with it?
As a speaker, I am known as the Motivational Firewood guy, and I actually own the trademark on that. It's registered.
Yep.
Early on in my speaking career, I went to a National Speakers Association meeting down in the Boston area.
Yep.
And it was my first meeting. So I had one of those blue name badges, like nothing fancy. They just write your name on it. And basically it's like, hey, everybody, I have no idea what's going on. I'm new.
Yeah.
And one of the veteran members came over and he said, oh, hey, Steve, hey, my name is Don. Great to meet you. What brought you here today? And I said, well, I want to be a motivational speaker. He said, okay, what sets you apart? I said, well, I want to help people. He goes, Steve, we all want to help people. That's why we're speakers.
Yes.
He said, what makes you different? And I've got to say, he was so gracious and generous with his time. It was about a 5-minute conversation.
Yep.
And I was so exhausted from trying to answer. I finally just said, Don, if someone's coming to hear me speak, they've got a spark of something in their heart that they want their lives to be better. And if I share a lesson or a story or an example or something I've overcome and they apply it and they do something and their lives get better, I said, it's almost like I was motivational firewood or something.
Yeah.
And he says, do you know anything about trademarks? And I went, not a clue. He said, I like the concept. He goes, you know what I like the best is the way your face lit up, the way you just explained that. He goes, young man, I like that phrase. And he said, go pursue it. I could have left the meeting that day and my career would have been greatly impacted.
Yeah.
And I owe him a phone call. I haven't talked to him in about 6 or 7 years, and I want to just thank him again for taking the time to talk to the guy wearing the blue badge.
So, what type of audiences do you speak to today?
A lot of what I speak to are people like the real estate industry
Yeah.
and some direct marketing companies where it's not necessarily a physical building they're in all day. They're
Yep.
almost like independent contractors. And
Yeah.
the challenge of that is sometimes they feel very rootless, um, that they're on their own a
Yeah.
lot. So I wind up speaking to a lot of people that are like that. In the nonprofit sector, I've spoken to quite a few times as well. People who are very heart centered in their job, but they get burned out because
Yeah.
their spirit is so in it and they care and give so much that they get fried and burnt out. And somebody once said, look, our people work all year round, but when their souls need a recharge, we hire Steve. And I thought that was the most wonderful, generous
Mm.
description ever.
So, when you talk dealing with the direct marketers or the real estate agents and those guys, which is pretty cutthroat, what's the biggest challenge you're finding they're having now in the new digital? I call it the digital COVID age, where
Yeah.
everything that was old is gone. We don't know what the future is going to bring. How we do our business has changed, not necessarily for the best in everything, but it's like we're morphing around. So, what are you seeing as their biggest challenge, and what do you speak on when you hear the challenges coming back at you?
The biggest challenge for a lot of people is in this part of the country right now,
Yeah.
anyway, there's hardly any inventory. There are so many people that want to buy a house. There are not many houses available. The prices right now are so artificially high.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And the first thing I say to people is, look, this is your career. I get it, but there's 8 other major areas of your life that I hope you are focusing on right now.
Yeah.
And to not just be churning for money all the time, because like a machine, you're going to wonder where that smoke's coming from eventually
Yeah.
when you try to overwork it. And when the market shifts and when all these things happen, please understand that all these other parts of your life, you're living them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So let's get back to basics. One of my keynote speeches is called Attitude, Action, Traction.
Yep.
And it just talks about having the right focus of mind every day, taking consistent action to make all the parts of your life as good as they can be because they all work together. And then gaining traction mean take everything you learn and apply it and keep advancing and moving
Yeah.
forward. So take everything that COVID is doing to the industry right now, understand it, and don't just sit there and say, well, I'm going to wait for it all to come back.
Nah.
Because we need to be moving forward and growing and taking on these new directions and pioneering the next movement, whatever it's going to be.
Do you think the with the COVID situation, it's flushed out the true leaders versus the pretenders, because now you do have to think completely different, and the ones that were quite comfortable sitting there doing what they've always done and aren't capable, or quite often capable, but choose not to look outside the box, are being left behind by guys who've gone, wow, I can actually sell a house online with live auctions on a computer. I don't need them in the house. Or I can speak to anyone. I don't have to pick a phone up and say, hey, you want a Zoom call? We can actually talk face to face. I know we can't come and see you. You're seeing much of that over there?
We are seeing quite a bit of that. My wife and I actually just refinanced the mortgage on our home, and we did it all by Zoom the other day.
Yeah.
We just had to move the camera so she could see us signing the forms. And it was, we said, wow, that's really interesting. I honestly believe that there's always going to be that human element that's going to be part of everything. I mean, I don't want to be 100% virtual with anything.
No.
Now, is the model going to go 100% back to where it was? I believe absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because we found these shortcuts. We find what some people would now refer to as time wasters. And people will say, well, this could have been 5 minutes on a Zoom call instead of an hour and a half driving and meeting and traffic.
True.
But I so miss, and we said this earlier, being on stage, being with real people, being with the electricity of face to face. We'll still have time for that and a need for that. But I do think a lot of things moving forward are going to be what people are now calling shortcuts, but I think it's going to become the day-to-day operation of a business. And I've embraced pretty much all of the virtual stuff. And I really do enjoy and appreciate the gifts that it's given me, because I don't have to get on a plane and fly 6 hours to go deliver a 90-minute keynote and then fly home. but
when
I
I do
do
sales
miss
training with
people.
people, I talk to them about the energy you feel, that you can read someone's body language, you can feel the energy coming off them, and you know very quickly if they're going to buy or not. Zoom, you can see their body language, you can't read their energy. When was the first time on stage you felt the energy, and how did you know what you were feeling? And how do you then communicate that to people when you're doing a motivational speech on how they need to open themselves up really to empathy or emotional intelligence, whichever way you want to call it? Because quite often you know where you're going before the customer's even said anything.
Yeah. It's funny, the biggest moment early on of connection I ever felt was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made speaking. And the beauty of that is the audience doesn't know what you were supposed to do, even if you completely forgot.
Done
I
that.
got to one part of my speech and I said something and I scanned the audience from, this side to this side. And I scanned all the way back even more slowly. And I still could not remember what I was supposed to say next. So I did the longest pregnant dramatic pause ever in the history of speaking. And then I finally looked at them and I said, "Do you mind if I take a moment and share why I became a speaker?" And I grabbed the chair and I turned her around, sitting on it backwards,
Yeah.
the back of the chair. I put my arms up on it and they said, "Oh my gosh, that would be wonderful." And I shared the story of my friend who convinced me to get into radio, and
Yeah.
how I'm here because I want to help other people to believe in their dreams. And people told me after, "When you did that, oh my gosh, I felt like you're speaking directly to me." And that was the best connection ever. That was probably 2 years into speaking.
Yeah.
And so now I try to even recreate those moments when I'm virtual with people.
Yeah.
And it can be hard because some people turn their cameras on, some never will.
Yes,
Some
that's
people are
true.
reading emails, some people are talking to their dog. It can be tough. But when I look in the camera and in the periphery of my screen, I say something impactful and I look straight into the camera because that's their eyes.
Yeah.
And I see them nod. I go, "Okay, we're together right now. We're together right now." And if you string enough of those moments together, I feel really good when I feel as though I've done my best to connect, even virtually, with an audience, and to get them to really understand that I care, even through this little lens.
So if you're Steve Gamlin, you're walking down back past your old college and your 20-year-old Steve Gamlin stumbles out of a house party from his youthful days and he looks up at you and he doesn't quite recognize you. He turns to you and says, "Mate, what's the best advice you give a 20-year-old?" And you're looking at your 20-year-old self, what would you say?
I would say know exactly who you are and let your words, your thoughts, and your actions reflect that every single day. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid of it. And don't let other people tell you who you should be.
Mate, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we all as young allowed too many people to tell us who we should be and what we should do. We didn't realize at the time, but if I know that you guys love your food as much as we do in Australia. If I gave you a booking down at your favorite seafood restaurant and I said, "Steve, you can invite 4 people, dead or alive," who would you invite and why? And you can't bring your wife; she's already at the table, so you
Okay.
don't get a free pass out of that one.
The first person on my list would be my dad. Lost him about 2.5 years ago and miss him so much.
Yeah.
I would invite him. I'd also invite my grandfather on my mom's side
Yeah.
because in his quiet, simple way, he taught me so much about life and how to be. And he's somebody I quote often
Yeah.
when I'm speaking. Another person I would who might be blurred along the line, I would invite Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. And some people think he's
Up in
been
the
dead for
corner.
20 years because when I listen to him, there's such a warmth and such a sense of sly humor
Mm.
in the stories he tells. I could sit and listen to him forever. And the fourth person would be Robin Williams, who
Oh,
provided so much laughter throughout his life, but yet hid such a dark, depressed side.
yeah.
And I would just love to sit with him as just a real everyday person and just have a conversation with
Wow.
with him.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would disagree with you on that one.
No.
Mate, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you today, even if it is on the other side of the world. But this is how we do it these days. If anyone wants to get a hold of you or email you or book you who is listening from the States, how do they find you? The international radio presenter, public speaker, motivational speaker, the legend of New Hampshire. Where do they get hold of you?
It's nice and easy, and thank you for all that. If I printed out what you just said and put macaroni and glitter around the edge, my mom, who is 72 years old, would still hang it on her refrigerator door.
I'm sure that you'll get hold of the YouTube and probably do it. So
it's nice and easy to find everything I do. It's at motivationalfirewood.com.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Well, look, you're heading into the warmer months. We're heading into the colder months, so we're nearly about the same when it comes to temperature. I wish you all the best over there in the States. We hope that we all get through all of our challenges at the moment. You've been a great speaker. I love what you talk about and how you get people to envision who they should be and what they do. You take care. Thank you so much. And as we say all the time on our show, have a groovy day.
Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate being here.